Welcome to our latest webinar. So we are in sunny Amsterdam now. So looking at the attendee list, fantastic number of people. So welcome one and all, and a very international crowd. So to those of you on the East Coast who've gotten up in the middle of the night, a special welcome to you. We hope you'll enjoy the webinar. So the usual rules. I will be moderating, but we've got two fantastic, well, 2.5 guests in the studio. So we've got Nadeem from Akamai and Magnus from IKEA. We're also joined by Jonas, who is without a mic, but is going to join us later on in the call. So for those of you on computers using the GoToWebinar interface, you'll see on the right-hand side a lovely dashboard and control panel. If you've got any questions, do just ask them. I'll be monitoring those as we go through, and I'll put as many questions as I can to the speakers while we're live. Just so you know, we've got just under 500 people registered, so questions will be quite busy. So apologies if I merge questions or I skip you for now, but if you keep them short, get them in quickly, then we'll cover as many as possible. So that's all from me. It's my great pleasure now to hand over to Nadeem from Akamai, who's going to take us through the webinar and discussions with Magnus, looking at how IKEA monitors and evaluates the performance of their website. Nadeem.
Great. Hi. My name is Nadeem, Product Marketing Manager for Akamai, and it gives me a great pleasure to be here today with Magnus from IKEA to discuss how IKEA monitors and evaluates its web performance. It's also a great insight on how IKEA have flourished in their journey to improve web performance. So in today's webinar, we will be discussing some great web performance topics, including the web performance challenges that we can see nowadays, the importance of real user data on web performance, mobile and desktop traffic split and the impact of that, optimizing front end of website for web performance improvements, and the trade-off between the web performance and third-party JavaScript. So before I hand the session to Magnus, I really wanted to set the scene in terms of the key web performance challenges that we're seeing. A lot of retailers are really struggling when competing with some of the huge online e-commerce companies. Your customers expect that your sites and apps to respond instantly, and they need their transactions and data to be secure. Brand loyalty has given way to customer loyalty to drive, and organizations really must focus on customers and their experiences using your products and services. As a result, organizations of all sizes need to make sure that customer experience is of high priority. Customers are really in control of how they interact with your digital properties, and their tool of choice is increasingly mobile. It's quite interesting because when it comes to digital transformation, we're seeing that there's 45% of executives that say digital transformation will increase return of investment. 25% claim that it will improve user experience, where 27% say that it's a matter of survival. So what are the complexities retailers are facing today? So number one, problematic third parties. 27% of websites have greater than 90% of third-party requests. Blind spots, so you have micro outages impacting businesses, which is very difficult to detect. And there's limited time and resources. So organizations don't have the resources to actually monitor how web performance is currently doing. And a fourth area is conflicting priorities within the organizations, where there are some people or some parts of the departments are very much focusing on speed and others on images and marketing aspects. So our customers expect websites and applications that respond instantly, especially when it comes to mobile devices on congested cellular networks. In fact, it's getting even harder since users are demanding richer experiences. And this means heavier pages with more pictures, interactivity that require large JavaScript files, third-party content, and numerous API calls. All of these slow down sites and apps. Normally with technology, things always get faster, but better and cheaper over time. But with the web, it's getting harder just to stay level, never mind providing instant response times. Studies show that people really care about speed of a page, and 53% of mobile site visits are abandoned if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load, which is huge. So your users are unique and your apps are increasingly complex. In fact, many of the elements that are introduced to help drive revenue could be hurting the end user experience by slowing down the applications. So with all of this in mind, it gives me great pleasure to hand the session to Magnus to go through IKEA's web performance journey. Just before I do that, just a quick introduction to Magnus. Magnus is a product specialist focusing on web customer meeting points for IKEA Group Digital, working with quality and performance. He focuses on the global rollout of real user monitoring, tag management, and A/B testing on the IKEA.com website. Magnus, although has over 20 years experience and is very much focusing not just on the platform but on content management, third-party tags which are having even greater impact on end user experience. So on that note, Magnus, please can I ask you start telling us about just generally about IKEA itself.
Yeah, so IKEA is a global organization. I'm sorry. IKEA is a franchisee organization, and the IKEA brand is owned by IKEA. I work for Inca Group, which is one of the franchisees, but we also manage the website for the whole of IKEA.com. The IKEA family is 422 stores in more than 50 markets, and we are growing with new stores coming up in South America in the coming years, for example. And we have just opened recently in Latvia and India. 2.5 billion visits to the IKEA.com site per year, and almost 1 billion store visits.
It's amazing.
So it's quite large, yeah. Roughly 200,000 people working for IKEA. The Inca Group then, which I'm working for, is, as I said, the largest franchisee, and we have the majority of the stores, and well, the bigger markets, and yeah. Yeah.
Great.
But yeah, so I don't need to do a lot of numbers there. So maybe next slide.
Yeah, so I mean, on that basis, I mean, can you just explain from a web performance side of things who actually, owns that within IKEA?
Yeah, so as I said, we deliver a global platform, the IKEA.com platform. It's in-house development, mostly. We have a global Google Analytics implementation to measure the traffic. We have a global A/B testing team that works in collaboration with the countries to do tests. We have a global tag management, but it's purely from a technical perspective. So countries will have their tags. They might be different from country to country. Each country is the publisher of their own site, and they can do A/B testing, they can do local development, and so on. But in all of this, who really owns performance? And yeah, no one really, and that's the problem. Well, in some sense, everyone owns it because we all know how important it is. But at the same time, yeah, I'm a marketing guy. I need my tags. I work with communication, and I really think our images are super important, and I want the best resolution or quality of the images, or I build functionality, and my functionality is key, of course. So it all comes together as a big compromise.
So look, I'll be honest with you, Magnus. I personally, I'm not just saying this because you're here, but I love IKEA. I think it's fantastic. Being in the UK, it's a great store. But I've always associated it to the huge, big stores that they have. And so what's really interesting is, how has IKEA's online strategy changed compared to the in-store activity that that we have all traditionally been used to?
Yeah, so I mean, you all know retail is changing, and you have met the people in the store that you bump into because they have more interest in their mobile phone than the stuff in the store, and yeah, and that's a big change, and you have to support that new type of shopping. You go there and you compare with the competition, perhaps, or you check out. I mean, IKEA stores are pretty large, so instead of going back to the previous department, you check on the phone instead. And of course, we have to support. That's also why we have invested in a good Wi-Fi in every store, for example. So there is a big change in retail, and it's more online than it has ever been before. I think we're on roughly 10% of the turnover is according to last yearly summary, approximately 10% is online. And in some countries, it's UK, you mentioned it. I think it's 15% in UK.
And when you have such huge figures, 10%, 15% is pretty huge for the website of things. Okay, great.
But I mean, and then we're also opening new types of stores. And the most recent one, I think, is the one in Paris, which is more of a showroom thing, a smaller store, where we want to be close to where the customers are.
And those are also offering sort of design your own rooms and ordering and
I haven't actually been in that store, but I mean, the whole point with them is to provide the services, but not maybe not being able to deliver all the stuff out of
But that obviously
store.
puts more pressure on the digital. So you've got people with their own mobiles. The store needs digital capability linked back to logistics, fulfillment, the large store stock. So I mean, it's a real stepping up, I think, of the digital offering and integration.
Exactly. And then we have, I mean, we have been trying out augmented reality stuff to see how does your new bookshelf fit in your room, or your new sofa fit in your room. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in that area.
Great. Okay, so apart from the obvious in terms of revenue, I mean, why is online performance now so important to IKEA?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two things that always come out on top when you talk performance, and it's SEO, search engine optimization, and I mean, we all know that Google has performance as one of their KPIs on how to rank your site. If you're slow, you get a lower rank than if you're fast. and that's pretty simple, and it's also very clear how to prioritize from that. But we also know that conversion rate has an impact. You get bored if the site is too slow. You leave if the site is too slow. You give up. So there is some kind of sweet spot where you need to be. You don't have to be super fast, but you have to be fast enough for people not to give up on you.
And has that level of speed increased or rather decreased? So do people give up sooner than they used to? Are people getting more intolerant, or have you bottomed out at a level where it's just okay?
I think that I mean, I'm so old, so I used to have a modem on my desk at home, and you knew that it would take 30 seconds for the site to load. I don't expect that to happen anymore today when I have a gigabit fiber. But no, I think that we're on a level where around 2 seconds. If you're on 2 seconds, you're pretty safe.
Okay.
But
fine.
Yeah.
Good. No pressure then.
No. And I mean, there are so many studies on this, and I give you one link here, WPO stats, web performance optimization stats. They have gathered studies on why this is important. So pick and choose there.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're building a responsive site, meaning that it's the same site for desktop and mobile users, and it needs to work on all those types of devices, and network usually make mobile phones or mobile devices in general slower. These numbers are from Google Chrome user experience data. So Chrome gathers user experience data, and you can actually run your own queries on those numbers. And so this is real data from Chrome users around the world, Chrome desktop and Chrome mobile, of course. And yeah, if you compare with these companies, we do a pretty good job, I think.
And these are some of the big companies, right?
Yeah.
And we can see here.
So this comes from the developer portal on Akamai, on the Akamai site, where you can run your well, you can compare yourself with your peers in the business.
So this is an Akamai tool, not a Chrome tool.
No, it's a. I think there is some kind of collaboration here. So it's data from Chrome, but Akamai has built a tool to actually pull and make it visible.
Great. I've had a couple of people asking which tools you use. So just to be clear then, for tracking the performance, even the data may be coming from Chrome, that's all in your Akamai performance dashboard. Is that right? Yeah.
So what I showed here was a query tool built by Akamai based on data from Chrome. You can find it on the developer portal on Akamai. Crux benchmarking.
Right. So I mean, one of the tools that I know, one of the areas that IKEA has really been helping organizations, now they're talking about tools, is to understand how web performance is having an impact on online business metrics. So whether that's revenue, bounce rate, session duration, and we've been able to do this, with using the Akamai Impulse real user data. So this is one of the solutions that we have. It's a solution which enables our customers to actually use 100% of real user data stored for 13 months, and then using this intelligence to correlate with key performance and business outcomes. And I think one of the things and one of the problems that a lot of organizations are having, and maybe which Magnus will now touch base on, is that a lot of organizations online find it very difficult to answer some of the most simplest of questions. So, you know, for example, what if my website had a better performance? How will that impact the bottom line? You know, what would happen if I remove the JavaScript, as an example, or the image? How will that improve performance and therefore effectively improve my revenue? Does this resource typically load, you know, slowly or late? You know, how can I get a more clearer view and transparency of my website? What exactly are the bottlenecks when it comes to performance? So, I mean, based on the fact that you have been using obviously the Akamai mPulse solution, I mean, I just wanted to get an idea from yourself, Magnus, of, you know, how you've been using this, and in reality, how has it helped you in terms of the, you know, your websites?
Yeah, so we're using mPulse and measure using the APIs in the browsers the page load of every page on the site. And I mean, we started out measuring on a high level. So this is basically what we knew. Number of beacons mean number of page loads, basically. But on a very high level, the median page load time would be 2.2 seconds. The 95 percentile, meaning the slowest 5% of the users, would be on 8.5 seconds. And well, if we start tweaking from there, we wouldn't really know where we would tweak. So the journey here has been to not only measure page load, but if we take the next slide, we measure a lot of different KPIs like DNS, lookup time, time to first byte, first paint, time to visually ready, time to first interaction, and even something called long tasks. And then long task is not a good thing, because that means there is a JavaScript running that takes forever.
Yeah.
And when you start measuring all of that, and you also start to measure how it looks on different pages or in different regions, then you can find areas where tweaking or improving performance makes more sense. And it's all about finding these spots.
So I understand the speed imperative. So
Yep.
on the basis you kill everything that slows the page down or rework it. But you did mention the KPIs. So are there some aspects of speediness that deliver more sales or better experience than others?
No, I'll come back to that, but I think the important thing here is that there is no single KPI that you can just turn to that and everything is fine and dandy. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. You have to look at different KPIs, and if some of them are sticking out, then that's where you need to work.
Right.
We have had cases actually where people have phoned our call centers and complained in a certain country. They have complained about product pages loading so slow that it looks like the phone, normally the mobile device, is hanging.
Wow. Tell us which country that is.
No, I won't tell you that. Sorry.
We've got international audience.
It has been fixed,
Yes.
So you can't find it anymore.
Fine.
But,
As I say, if people
I
want
mean,
to guess,
yeah.
just vote now on the webinar.
Yeah, exactly. So and it turned out that they were in some cases loading a lot of images that were never shown.
Yep.
They were there to present or to solve a certain use case, but when they were loaded, for some devices, it was too much.
Yeah.
And it just felt like they hanged for 10 seconds or 15 seconds. And for devices that had no problem with this, you couldn't see any difference. So we had to find the devices that had the problem to really understand what was going on.
Right. I know you're going to touch on that in a little while. I mean, one of the things we're talking about devices, and which is very clear at the top of the webinar, as I mentioned, is that everything is flipping, right? First, it was all about desktop, and now mobile is really flourishing. More and more users are really tapping into the digital sphere using their mobile devices. Can you tell us, you know, from your side, the split between mobile and desktop, and whether you are also seeing this shift, you know, towards mobile?
Yeah. So when we talk about the responsive site, this is two images from the same site. The one to the left is what it would look like in a mobile phone, and the one to the right is what it would look like on a desktop browser. And it's the same page, it just adapts to the format of the browser. And so I don't really remember how many days of traffic this is or how many hours of traffic it is, but the important thing here is the percentage numbers. So as you can see down on the left, we have mobile Safari and Chrome Mobile. So that's our mobile traffic.
So that's working out to 59% if you combine the two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
okay.
More than half of the traffic is mobile. And if you look on the right side, you see the top 10 operating systems, where iOS is bigger than Windows.
Yeah.
And Windows is bigger than Android. Well, small differences, and as I said, I don't really remember what country this came from, but the split here is different from country to country as well. So Android might be bigger than iOS in one country and vice versa in another country.
In the complaining countries, maybe. No, jokes apart, the orthodoxy in the last decade was that people would be inspired or bored, they'd look on their mobile, then they'd go home, fire up the desktop and design rooms on big screens. So in addition to the split of traffic, are you seeing that different types of activity are done on different devices, or is mobile now, you can do everything?
There are still some things we don't allow on a mobile. For example, when we plan a kitchen, that you need the desktop browser to plan a kitchen. That's too complex and too many items to keep track of on a mobile screen. But well, I don't know what the future brings, but right now you need to have a desktop browser to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So when you refer to the ones complaining, so if you see on the left side, this is a histogram on how long time a certain page takes to load, and we compare mobile and desktop, and it's 2.6 or 2.7 seconds compared with 2.3 seconds for desktop. Fairly close, not really a problem. But if you dive into the mobile part and compare mobile Safari with mobile Chrome, you see that mobile Safari is actually faster than desktop.
Yeah.
But mobile Chrome is a lot slower. So here we have a difference between mobile Safari and mobile Chrome of almost 100%, 75% perhaps. And this is not to say that Chrome Mobile is a bad browser, because it's not. It's a good browser, but usually it's running on devices that maybe have a less good processor than the iOS devices.
So that's really interesting, because if I was to look at just the normal mobile stats of 2.6 seconds, I'd say that's great, that's fantastic. But now, because you've obviously been able to use mPulse and really dissect that, you can now see exactly the difference between mobile Safari and Chrome, and then try to adapt to that in accordance to, you know, how you can improve the performance there, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we can go even deeper here and look at different device makers. We can, and so on and so on.
Amazing.
So we actually can find what Chrome devices are having a problem here.
And with this information you're getting, I've had a question in just saying, to get this data in mPulse, do you need to put additional tracking codes on your own website? How heavy is it to implement that for you in order to get all this insight?
Yeah, so all tracking needs some kind of code running, absolutely. So mPulse is a JavaScript, as Google Analytics is a JavaScript running on your site.
Mm-hmm.
The team behind the mPulse boomerang script are fanatics about performance. So I know that script behaves well. But it is still a script, and it still needs to send data to you. So I mean, we're still talking milliseconds, but of course there is some kind of impact. But it also sends data after the page is loaded, so the impact should be minimal.
Right, I'm just conscious of time. So now, I mean, one of the areas that a lot of organizations are focusing on is front end of their website for performance improvements. So how does IKEA really optimize the front end of your website, to help with performance?
Yeah, I mean, we're using all different technologies that you can come up with. All the normal techniques to get good performance, HTTP2 protocol, caching. We use Image Manager to convert the images, so we will actually send different images to different types of browsers and different types of operating systems based on what they can handle and how fast they load these different images. We work with the performance budget. It's not enforced, so we are not like turning things off if you break the performance budget, but we talk with developers about the performance budget and try to get them to adhere to best practices. But it's always a balance between adding features and having the best performance.
And the other nightmare, just very quickly, that a lot of e-commerce organizations have is third party. So how does IKEA really also handle the trade-off between web performance and third-party JavaScripts?
Yeah, that's a struggle, but it's the same thing. Again, it's a balance. We know we need to have third-party JavaScript for different reasons, but we try to keep a good eye on them and know what's happening and which ones are performing bad. The one you see here is a small tracking JavaScript that actually responds with the redirect, and then after the redirect it fetches a 1.1 by 1 GIF. The problem is that it takes 5 seconds and it's blocking. That's meaning nothing really happens at all on the website for 5 seconds. And that's not good, of course. Problem is then to know if is this happening in my browser only? So this image here is from Chrome Waterfall. and developer tools in Chrome. So this is what's happening on my computer, and we can see here in the middle that it takes 5.06 seconds. And the red line on the right side is the page load complete event. And as you can see, it happens after loading this redirect. It's not adding any value, but problem is now to realize, is this happening to everyone or only to me? So next slide here. This is an aggregated waterfall. So it means that now we take all the page loads from all the users,
yep,
and look at how long time this script has taken to load for all of them, and this is what comes out. And as you can see, it's actually even worse. On my computer it took 5 seconds, but the medium page load here of 6 seconds, and this script has clearly been pushing that limit to the right, with all the response times on almost 6 seconds. So this is a script that we no longer have on our website.
Wow, got rid of it.
Yep.
Quick time. Right, let's wrap up now. So taking into account all the great work that you and your colleagues have been doing on IKEA's online presence, how has this impacted on IKEA over the past 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, we have some insights, of course, and the fact that all markets are not equally fast, and in some cases we can impact it with different with changing content, but in some cases we can't actually impact it because it's due to the country infrastructure, it's due to what kind of devices they have. So in one country more low-end phones, and in another country more high-end phones, and we can clearly see a difference in performance based on that. We have different third-party JavaScripts on the different sites. In some cases they well, I mean, the ones that have performed really bad, they are gone, but of course there are differences between different third parties, and that's something we have a dialogue with the third parties about. We have slightly different functionality on the different sites because that's what's expected.
Yeah.
But the revelation or the notion here is that there is no magic KPI.
Yeah.
We have to look at different values and compare them. In this case, you actually see that I think there is 10 countries on the slides here. So the different lines compare different page load time in different countries. To the right, there is traffic per hour, and to the left, there is time to load the page. And you can see that there are differences between the different countries.
I mean, it's great that, I mean, my last question from you, I mean, it's great that you've been using obviously Akamai and Pulse to get this intelligence to really help your website flourish. Just the last question, just generally in terms of, you know, using Akamai's platform, whether it's the CDN Ion technology, Image Manager, mPulse, you know, how has this really helped you just generally in terms of your online presence, yeah, and web performance?
Yeah, I mean, mPulse is the tool that we use to get those insights and to understand what is really going on there. I mean, they come together quite nicely, because if you deliver something from the edge, it's not from a server you're controlling yourself, it's from someone else's server, in this case Akamai's server. You want to have some kind of insights in what is going on out there and how good are the measures that we have applied to the delivery. and that's where Pulse comes in. So giving us insights in what is working and what is not working.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so
I have to jump in now, I'm afraid, since we are out of time.
Sure.
So firstly, big thanks, Magnus, for being so open. I know it's always difficult trying to share facts, you know, from a large company, but I think you've done a great job giving us some real detail. Also, Nadeem, for taking us through the whole story here, so that's fantastic. Now, I'm sorry I didn't get through more questions. We tried to put them in where we could, but I've got quite a queue here. So I'm going to try and work through those later, and anything that isn't answered in the deck, we'll just add to the notes on the webinar. You will get an email in the coming hours just to remind you of the link for the webinar, and once it's been transcribed, the whole recording will be available for you for future enjoyment or to share with your loved ones as an early Christmas present, whatever you wish. But anyway, from super sunny Amsterdam, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.